Nephenee has always been an interesting unit in Fire Emblem Heroes. For a long time, she was the only holder of the powerful Wrath B skill, and her stat distribution is pretty unique for her infantry status. Besides a few army units, you're not going to find many heroes who have a decent amount of defense paired with an above average speed stat. This uncommon pairing of stats can be further improved with her new unique legendary weapon, the Dauntless Lance. If you're wondering about the name, it's probably a nod to the banner Nephenee was first introduced, called the Dauntless Crimeans. Dauntless Lance in its base form will only cost Nephenee some SP, and it has a pretty simple effect. It's a 16 might weapon that lowers special cooldown by 1. Essentially, this is just a more powerful slaying lance, which is Nephenee's default weapon. However, there's more. Dauntless Lance actually gets an extra little effect, being that it's effective against armored units. While a little niche, for anyone who is familiar with Arena, you know that armor units and armored teams are quite common. Having a slaying lance combined with a slaying spear is actually really awesome. It's simple, but effective. If you use Nephenee with a slaying lance originally, there is no reason not to upgrade to Dauntless Lance. It's a straight upgrade. Now Dauntless Lance can be refined for 200 Divine Dew, and if you choose a special upgrade, then it grants +4 speed and defense when the enemy initiates combat. If you look at Nephenee's 5-star stats, you'll notice that she has a base 35 speed and 34 defense, which are her two standout attributes. Improving both of them on the enemy phase is pretty nice, and it focuses on her standard melee physical matchups. It should be obvious that if you pick the special upgrade, then it's probably best to complement it with some strong enemy phase skills. Now I want to focus on talking about Nephenee's unique stat line a bit more, especially when compared to other infantry lance units. These 4 units here are the 4 highest defense infantry lance users at the moment. From top to bottom is lowest to highest amount of defense, and also fastest to slowest in terms of speed. Some takeaways here are that obviously Lucas has the highest defense but the lowest speed. Many players actually sacrifice his speed further to just focus on improving Lucas's defense to the point where he literally takes 0 damage. Obero has always been in a sort of odd spot where she isn't as physically tanky, but her res stat is definitely usable. She can be a better mixed tank, but the lack of pure min-max specialization does turn some people away from using her. I think in the future Obero could be a unit that could be heavily improved with a unique legendary weapon. As a personal fan, I do hope she gets one sometime. Now when we look at Shiro, he beats Nephenee in every stat category except for speed. That may seem bad, but Shiro does have a higher base stat total, meaning it's not a super fair comparison anyway. However, that difference of 5 speed is actually really important. For most stats, 1 to 2 points isn't a complete game changer. For the speed stat, even just 1 point can make all the difference. When you have 5 more speed than the enemy, your unit gets a follow-up attack. That is like doing double damage. Conversely, if you can prevent a double, then you only take half the amount of damage as opposed to a unit who does get doubled. The speed stat is used for both offensive and defensive capabilities. Even though Nephenee only has 1 less point of defense than Shiro and Obero, if she can prevent a follow-up attack from her enemies, the amount of damage she can prevent heavily outweighs that single point of defense. To further emphasize Nephenee's unique stat distribution, let's look at these units with some simple weapon refining. Dauntless Lance with the special upgrade grants +3 HP and the +4 speed and defense during the enemy phase. This puts her at a staggering 39 speed, which only further separates her from the rest of these units. Shiro is at a disadvantage because his Bright Naginata can't be refined, but its effect is still pretty strong, and it grants +4 attack and +4 defense during the enemy phase. Shiro and Nephenee are actually pretty similar, but with one focusing on attack and the other focusing on speed. As for Obero and Lucas, neither has unique weapons, but let's say we give them slaying lances with a defense refined upgrade. Both of them get +5 HP and +4 defense. Looking at this layout, you can see Nephenee gets a massive speed advantage over everyone else here. However, if you're going to go with a pure enemy phase loadout, then you might question if all the extra speed becomes wasted. You might want to use the extremely powerful Steady Breath plus Quick Repose build, and at that point, if you can tank enemy hits, and you get a guaranteed follow-up, then why should you care about a unit's speed stat? Lucas is the clear choice for a build like this because of his superior physical bulk. That doesn't mean speed is a wasted stat, however. Wrath really does make Nephenee a standout unit. Since it can activate in the middle of a fight, Wrath can be procced in a melee engagement where the follow-up attack is activating special. This is why speed is so important if you keep Wrath on Nephenee. For this to happen, Nephenee wants a 2-turn cooldown special. She attacks, the enemy attacks, and then she attacks again, proccing her special. It also works if the enemy attacks first and Nephenee doubles. If the enemy hits Nephenee hard enough, that can put her under 75% HP and into Wrath activation range. With the lowered special cooldown of Dauntless Lance, Nephenee can abuse Bonfire on a 2 cooldown with a potential extra +10 Wrath damage. Because of her higher base speed, Nephenee has a much better player phase than someone like Shiro, who may not be able to get those follow-up attacks. That doesn't mean she has a bad enemy phase, however. Any follow-up potential increases the chances you get to activate Wrath, which means the special upgrade does improve Nephenee's enemy phase double potential without having to run Quick Riposte. I think having Wrath by default is why I personally want to focus on Nephenee's speed more than her defense. Wrath is risky, but the payoff is substantial and it can be used on both the player phase and the enemy phase. Knowing all of this, I want to make my case for not choosing the special effect upgrade in specific circumstances. The special upgrade grants +4 speed and defense only during the enemy phase, whereas the speed refine grants +3 speed during both phases, and the defense refine grants +4 defense also during both phases. So right off the bat, I'm gonna say that the defense refine is probably not better than the special refine in many circumstances. There are very few times where having the extra defense on the player phase is a huge boon, and that's why we don't really see skills like Armored Blow or Warding Blow be used a lot. Getting the same amount of defense plus 4 extra speed on the enemy phase will probably be better utilized. Now I think the speed refine is possibly just as good as the special upgrade because, as we mentioned, the speed stat can be used offensively and defensively. By keeping the extra speed during the player phase, it helps improve Nephenee's chances at getting her own follow-up attacks. Unfortunately, I think this is only worth pursuing if you have a plus speed Nephenee because 35 base speed while above average isn't as crazy as something like 38, 39, or 40 speed. I also think it's best used with a speed increasing A skill. A neutral speed nature with a speed increasing A skill might be okay, but I would suggest having speed buffs on the same team. The main reason I want to commit to the player phase is because of Wrath and the potential it has to be useful when Nephenee is fast enough to always get a follow-up attack. If you want to use the special upgrade for Dauntless Lance to its max potential, it's hard to argue not using Steady Breath and Bonfire. As mentioned, Dauntless Lance turns Bonfire into a 2-turn cooldown special, and with Steady Breath, after taking a single enemy hit, Nephenee can retaliate with Bonfire. I would suggest Close Defense as a Sacred Seal, bringing Nephenee's defense up to 48 when being initiated on. That means Bonfire is doing a massive 24 damage, and if Nephenee takes a lot of damage from say a green unit or a dragon, she can add an extra 10 damage from Wrath. A neutral Nephenee with 39 speed from Dauntless Lance has a decent amount of fall potential and is at a good range to stop a lot of doubles. If you have to deal with really fast units, then a speed buff is probably necessary, but that depends on what kind of arena opponents you face. If you want Nephenee to survive extended trades, then Aether is another good option. If it hits a full HP enemy while Wrath is active, then Nephenee should be able to heal a substantial amount and be ready for more action. Now if you want a different take on a defensive setup, then the Brazen skills are the perfect pairing for Wrath. In the past, when Nephenee first released, I had a tough time trying to find a fun build to match with her stats and the Wrath skill. I think Brazen skills and the addition of the Smoke C skills and Sacred Seals are what I've been waiting for. The idea is that while Nephenee's first engagement is a bit weaker, every battle after that she becomes an incredibly tough target to finish off, with Brazen attack and defense granting 7 extra defense and attack and speed smoke crippling surrounding enemies with -7 attack and speed. Nephenee becomes extremely bulky. She should also be in Wrath range, meaning her specials become deadlier, and if she survives to the next player phase, it gets extra cooldown reduction. Nephenee's main issue is her magical bulk, so Brazen defense and resistance might be a better all-around choice. If you add Noontime, Soul, or Aether to this type of build, Nephenee can hold back multiple enemies on her own and become a unique type of frontliner for your team. Now since I spent so much time talking about the speed refine for Dauntless Lance, I want to show the build I've been trying out with it. Because I have a plus speed boon Nephenee, my goal was to always focus on improving her speed stats so that she can be a deadly player phase unit and still retain decent enemy phase power. I had originally used the plus speed Slaying Lance, and with Bonfire and Wrath, it was a combo I enjoyed and felt was effective already. I also messed around with Harmonic Lance, but that is a different type of weapon when paired with Wrath. Anyway, I'm using Fury here only for arena, and outside of that I would usually just use Nephenee's default attack and speed plus 2A skill. I have to say that recently adding attack smoke has been very effective. In situations where I want Nephenee to take out a target, but she will be in enemy range afterwards, attack smoke and speed smoke have been very helpful in keeping Nephenee alive. Since Kha'Zix comes with it at 4 stars and is now summonable, it's a skill I would suggest for any Nephenee builds. As a last minute addition, I should mention Steady Blow might not be a bad choice for player phase setups. +4 speed and +4 defense when attacking would be great, and if you want you could try it with the special upgrade for +4 speed and defense during both phases. If only it wasn't such a rare skill to get. In review, I have to say that in its base form, Dauntless Lance is really good. While I did not talk about it much, the added armor effectiveness means Nephenee's average attack stat gains a much needed boost when fighting the monster defenses of the very common army units in Arena. With Wrath infused specials, she can probably even KO some green army units in the right circumstances. If you want to refine Dauntless Lance with one of the stat upgrades, then I do think the speed refine has its uses for speed boon Nephenees and builds that focus on speed related skills. If you choose the special upgrade, then it obviously caters to enemy phase builds. Extra speed and defense is very nice to have, and it's probably the go-to upgrade if you have a minus speed or minus defense nature. If you're focused on making an enemy phase build, then the extra special cooldown of the weapon plus Steady Breath seems like the best setup. close defense in the Sacred Seal slot will also be a further defensive boost. As a whole, if you use Nephenee with her default slaying Lance and Wrath, then she will still play the same way for the most part. Dauntless Lance isn't flashy with a brand new effect, but cooldown reduction, effectiveness against armors, and extra speed and defense make for an effective weapon considering Nephenee's base stats. I think it's a good upgrade for a unit who was already pretty decent. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I want to hear your thoughts about the Dauntless Lance in the comments. I laid out a lot of my own personal thoughts in this video, but do remember, everyone plays the game in a different way, so of course everyone values each unit and skill differently. For me, I already have a solid physical tank in Lucas, so for Nephenee I wanted to focus on a different role, and I was lucky enough to get a plus speed nature. Maybe someone has a plus defense Nephenee and they don't have Lucas, so going for a strong speedy tank Nephenee might be what they are looking for. That's completely fine because Fire Emblem Heroes gives you the freedom to make any unit pretty strong in different ways. Definitely one reason why I enjoy this game so much. Enough of my ramblings, I'll see you guys in the next video.